process. You cannot take people who have been enslaved for a long time and put them in a promised land. They have to be processed in a thing called wilderness, because an old mentality has to die in them, because they are still thinking like stinking Egypt. And God cannot have that in a Canaan land. So he had to wait 40 years for a generation of stinking thinking to die out, because he knew that he could not put new wine into old wineskin. Does that make any sense? And when you're in transition, some stuff is dying in you, but some new stuff is being born. And you don't always understand. Your feet are getting larger because you have to enlarge your understanding. Actually, the word understand does not mean to stand under. It means to stand among. And when you stand among people, it's when you learn to understand them. You don't understand people by having you be above them and they be below you. You don't understand. There's a gap. But when you come down and stand among them and talk to them and put your finger on the pulse beat of where they hurt and where they cry and where they bleed and what messes up their life and the loneliness with which they deal, I understand the loneliness of the prophetic. It doesn't matter how congenial your personality is, how gregarious you are. There's a loneliness that is built into the office of the prophet, and there's nothing you can do to change it. I've embraced it, and I know what it's like to be around a lot of people and feel all alone at the same time. Called, sanctified unto himself. God is a jealous God, and he's looking for a people. He's looking for a people. He's looking for a people. You remember Jesus said, foxes have holes, birds have nests, and the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Was he just talking about some strange lessons of some animals? I do not think so. Jesus was saying that a fox has a hole because a fox goes into a hole to reproduce himself. And a bird, when he wants to reproduce himself, goes to a nest and lays an egg to reproduce himself. And when a man is ready to reproduce himself, he goes to bed. And Jesus said, I don't have any place to even lay my head so that I can reproduce who I am into a people. I'm looking for somebody that's ready to be made in his image. To say, God, let your divine DNA come in me. Make me just like you. Make me like you. Make me like you. Pregnant woman's feet get larger. What happens is that because of the kabod, the weight of what she's carrying, it causes her arch in her feet to actually fall a little bit. And it is the falling of that arch that extends the foot out, not only lengthwise, but also widthwise. And the thing about it is that even after the baby is born, your feet will never go back to their original size. Because once God has stretched you, you will never be able to get back into the shape that you were before. I came to stretch you tonight in a way so that after the stretching, you can never get back into that same shape again. I'm so glad I left the iPad because none of this was on it. You get to have fresh manna tonight. You really do. I'm glad about it. I'm glad about it. But another thing that happens is that you know the obvious with the stomach growing, the enlargement that happens there. But some things that folks wouldn't necessarily know just by a cursory observation of you. They wouldn't know that a woman's twin towers are naturally augmented without having to make a trip to the Silicon Valley. I'm trying to be tactful. But it is not uncommon that a woman's cup size will increase a full size. Some women get so proud of that. Her blood volume increases. But there is something that is enlarging here. Isn't it interesting to know that when Ruth had a baby, the Bible says that child was put on Naomi's lap and she gave suck to the baby, that her grandmother's bosom began to fill with something for her grandbaby. Isn't it amazing that even old women, God can supernaturally, when he touches your life, will make you fruitful even in your old age and allow you to produce something that will nourish your children's children. He gives you, God, the word provision literally means for the vision. It means provide, proveer. It means literally to see a need before you have the need and make provisions for it. That's what provision is about. It's about seeing a need before you have the need and then making provisions for it. Now, if you don't have enough provisions, borrow it. But here's my word of wisdom to you. Borrow money from a pessimist because they don't expect it back. It's really interesting. Not only do the feet grow in pregnancy, not only does the bosom grow, her hair grows. Because if you start growing and if your covering is not growing, then your covering becomes a lid. A lid stifles. And it's a terrible thing to be up under somebody's leadership and the leadership is not growing. So he grows the glory that's on you. God gives you supernatural weave. It's unbelievable. And I'm in the hair care business. Do everything that you need to do, and we want to thank you very much. We buy more hair from India and sew it on heads than you can shake a stick at. I'm telling you, we really do. No, we really do. And it is not cheap either. Your covering grows. Your covering grows. As you grow, your covering grows. Your nails grow. It's amazing. These are transitions. These are transitions. And isn't it awkward when you are like an Elijah, where you've gone to a place that God told you to go, and the provision that used to sustain you there stop all of a sudden without any warning. And yet God told you to go. Isn't it odd that God could tell you to get in a ship and go to the other side knowing that a storm is coming, but he never tells you about it? I am convinced that God gives us information on a need-to-know basis. Because if God told you everything that you were going to go through ahead of time, we wouldn't even go. We wouldn't sign up for it. We wouldn't take the job. He has to obscure it from us for our own protection. He really does. He really, really does. And I want to caution you here that whenever God does a miracle in your life, and we celebrate the blessings and the miracles of God, don't just go after the miracle. Get the message in the miracle. Because there is a message in every miracle. The burning bush was a miracle, but there was a voice that came out of the bush that was far more significant than the burning bush itself. The burning bush was just something to get Moses' attention, that he would turn aside and see the sight. It was not about what he saw, it was about what he heard. And we can get so hung up in shouting over the miracle that we walk away without the message in the miracle. It's not the miracle of the fishes and the loaves that food was multiplied. The message was that man shall not live by bread alone. There's a message in every miracle, every time that God does something supernaturally, because miracles are temporary, but blessings are permanent.